Seems like every day now there's more and more headlines about dangers caused by the COVID vaccine or the fact that we're like on the 9th booster. And here in America, 90% of people are now rejecting going for their next booster, which means 90% of those people that believed in the program at one point are now going against the CDC recommendation. I think this is a huge wake-up moment for this country, the United States of America, but also the world. And many around the world are starting to ask questions about the investment they got into. We paid a fortune for a product that was supposed to be stopping COVID. It didn't. Now it's endemic. It's here forever. It's here to stay. If you watch the high wire, I think we can blame a lot of that on the fact that we basically turned everybody into a gain-of-function machine with the vaccine. Instead of killing it dead, like those who were unvaccinated, their immune systems killed it. Now those that are vaccinated cannot seem to stop the spread of COVID, and God knows where that's going to lead in the future. But at the heart of this, there's so much that has been going on, so many shenanigans and backroom deals, and one of the biggest backroom deals happened in Europe, and it's been the focus of a lot of the attention that we've had. I want to revisit this topic today because we're going to get deeper into it. So take a look at how we talked about this backroom deal in Europe.
In December of 2020, when the first vaccines were going into the arms of a UK grandmother, we have Ursula von der Leyen's husband, Heiko.
And so she's the head, she's the one that signed these contracts. She's basically the president or head of the EU.
The head of the European Union, yes.
European Union, and they're asking, what did you sign? Like, they're not being allowed as members of that same parliament. They're not being allowed as EU members to see what the heck she signed. What was the agreement, right? That's what they're asking for.
And allegedly, there's text messages where she was texting Albert Bourla back and forth during that time. What are they talking about? They won't be revealed.
Wow.
And so if you look into a little bit of what was happening at that time as well. Her husband, Ursula von der Leyen's husband, takes a position as medical director at a company called Orgenesis in New York, of all places.
Wow.
So there's the actual page. You can see him there, medical director, Heiko von der Leyen. There he is. And so in April of 2022, this was well known by everybody, saying, what's going on here? There's an investigative reporting that looked into this, and this is what they had to say. Let's look at that investigative report to see what they wrote. They wrote this: Albert, Ursula, Heiko, the dangerous relationship between the president of the European Commission and the CEO of Pfizer. They were on it back in April. And they write this, according to them, basically they're saying Dr. Heiko von der Leyen, husband of the president of the European Commission, who until then had been running a clinic in Hanover, that's in Germany, was recruited in December 2020 as medical director of the pharmaceutical company Orgenesis, which is based in New York State, just like Pfizer.
I'm going to have to assume that was a pretty decent salary hike.
Absolutely, in the tune of over $1 million, I hear. So it goes on to say, Orgenesis is a biotech company developing cell and gene therapies using messenger RNA technology. In May 2020, the company announced the launch of its new vaccine platform targeting the COVID virus. When Dr. van der Leyen joins the Orgenesis board, the European Commission had just concluded a series of contracts with pharmaceutical companies between August and November 2020, including 2 with Pfizer, BioNTech.
Wow. So at the same time, Ursula, who's secretly having conversations with Alex Bourla, secretly signing documents that the rest of the EU hasn't seen yet or demanding to see, her husband gets this giant promotion onto a biotech company making an mRNA COVID vaccination. Well, obviously, you've got this conversation going on. Many in the European Union want to know what the heck was going on with those text exchanges. My understanding is they haven't been turned over, or some, I think, have said that they've been erased. And it's important information. It's important for the entire world to see what kind of deals were being made here. Well, I bring this up because just a couple of weeks ago, Christine Anderson, who is the member of the European Parliament, who has been on our show, one of the great outspoken truth tellers in the world today, she wanted to address this issue at the European Parliament, and in the middle of her address, she was cut off. This is what that looked like.
In connection with vaccine negotiations between the European Commission and Pfizer. I give the floor to Ms. Christine Anderson to move the request on behalf of the ID Group.
In bester von der Leyen-Manier, früher nannte man es Vetternwirtschaft, handelte von der Leyen per SMS mit Chef CEO Pfizer einen Vertrag über 35 Milliarden Euro aus. Wenn sie sich schon weigert, alle Dokumente offenzulegen und einer Einladung in den Covid-Ausschuss zu folgen, zudem die Anfragen der Ombudsfrau beharrlich ignoriert und selbst die Rüge des Europäischen Rechnungshofes mit einem arroganten Schulterzucken weglächelt, dann müssen wir als Parlament von der Leyen spätestens jetzt, da die Staatsanwaltschaft gegen sie wegen Korruption ermittelt, die rote Karte zeigen. Schlimm genug, dass die Kommissionspräsidentin korrupt ist. Ein Parlament aber, das diese Korruption deckt, ist es ebenso und beraubt.
No more. Now, I put the request to the vote by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is rejected. Therefore, the agenda is adopted. The order of business is thus established. Thank you very much.
We're seeing so much of this around the world, people being silenced, just trying to get a thought out. What is the big rush? I think you even hear people in the audience yelling, that are there. Why can't we hear from her? Let's let her finish her statement. Well, I am honored to be joined right now by Christine Anderson. That's exactly what we're going to let you do. Christine, thank you for taking the time today.
Well, thanks for having me. Nice seeing you again.
It's good seeing you again, too. So I would like to know, you were in the middle of speaking there. What was the rest of your statement? Let's just start there. What were you going to go on to say, and why were you making that statement?
Well, we had learned from the media that the European District Attorney, the People's Attorney's Office, are investigating Ursula von der Leyen. They actually launched that investigation last year. And they only made a public statement about, we have launched investigations, but they didn't clarify, is it EU Commission or is it Ursula von der Leyen personally? So they were very, tight with their words on that. So, and a few weeks back, they said a little more. Yes, they are actually investigating Ursula von der Leyen personally and her role in negotiating these contracts, which, as you pointed out, her buddy, CEO of Bourla, Albert Bourla, he benefited from that, and her husband as well. So it kind of makes you think, well, what is going on there? So she has been refusing to show up in the COVID committee. So has Albert Bourla, by the way. They declined to show up there twice. And they would be the only ones to shed light on these text messages that apparently have been exchanged. So, like I said, she negotiated a contract for 4.6 billion of those doses. I mean, this is half the planet. And They did so in November of 22. So what did she know that none of us knew? Because, they said it was 2 shots only. 2 shots.
Right.
Why would they buy 11 shots for every single European citizen? Why would they do that? So anyhow, so they're investigating her, and the news broke, and I thought it was reason enough for her to show up in Parliament and answer some questions, because we, as the elected representatives of the people in the various member states, our job is to answer to the people. But how can we do that if we don't get the answers that we need in order to fulfill our job? So she is actively preventing us from doing our job, the job we were being elected to do, and the job we are being paid for by the taxpayers and no one else. So, and like I said, I wanted her to show up, and I would have thought that the parliament, whose primary role is to control government, would be on my side on this one. But no, they weren't. And that just goes to show they're just as corrupt as Ursula von der Leyen is, point blank.
Which you clearly point out there. You say it's bad enough that she's committing these crimes, but now we are sitting in Parliament and we are ignoring it or looking the other way and allowing this continue. Then we're not doing our job looking out for the people. And what was it? What was that vote on? Was that vote just to be allowed to have this conversation? What exactly did they rush into a vote? What was that vote about?
Yes, that was actually, I wanted them to put another point on the agenda for that plenary sitting, to have her come in and answer our question. What is this investigation all about? What can you tell us? What about these text messages you exchanged with Borla? Do they even still exist? Or did you delete them already, as you have done in the past already, by the way? So, just having this conversation and her coming in, enabling us as elected representatives of the people to do our job. But you saw how it went, right? So
What was
I
the
didn't
final
even
vote?
realize
So they interrupted you and then had that vote. Should we even have this conversation? How many people voted on your side? How many people voted on your side? We should have this conversation. Do you remember?
I don't have the number right at hand, but it was a minority as always. It might have been 150.
Okay.
I don't even remember. So, but I mean, I didn't even realize that Mike had been killed. It took me, a few seconds to realize that even. And I didn't even get to vote on that vote myself because it went all so fast. By the time I'd realized, yeah, she had killed my Mike. So I was like, why did you kill my Mike? And anyway, no explanation, no nothing. The vote, just took place without my participation. And it was no surprise here when you know how the EU Parliament functions. It was declined. Yeah, just having a conversation about this. That was all.
We had this conversation when you were on before, and obviously, you said I keep saying the world is waking up and that, hopefully we're watching the European Union. You're one of those outspoken voices. We have just a handful that are asking those types of questions in our Congress and our Senate here. As we move forward, now the European Union, this is a huge deficit. You make a good point. They make this purchase of, billions of vaccines. Was it 4 billion vaccines? Really, as the pandemic is winding down. So what were those for? Certainly they must be sitting, and we hear all these stories of having to throw out all these vaccines now because they're getting old. So just on a financial level, it seems like someone has some explaining to do on why did we buy a product that is now dying on the shelves that nobody wants, and who's going to be responsible for the mismanagement of funds?
Yeah, you are exactly right, but that does not seem to be the case, especially in the Western democracies. I'm not concerned about China or North Korea. They don't have a democracy to begin with. They are totalitarian regimes, point blank. But they have this problem, as I pointed out before, they have this problem in the Western democracies because the people do get to elect their representatives. And the means they're implementing, to take away these democratic processes by shaming people, threatening them with their livelihoods. If you don't do what we tell you to do, you might lose your job, and all of that. All of this gaslighting that's been going on, it all serves that very same purpose, which is to undermine freedom, democracy, and the rule of law, and to roll back these democratic processes, because the people, guess what? They don't want what the globalitarian misanthropists want. There is a conflict of interest, and but they seem, on the stronger side, and they seem to win time and time and time again. So it's of utter importance that people need to wake up and need what is going on. And so many times, especially me as a German, people always ask me, well, how was it even possible back then? How could this happen in the 30s, that the Nazis came to power and the people just went along? Well, take a look around. It's exactly what we're seeing right now. And by the way, government enabling big companies, big pharma or whatever, so they could make billions and billions in profits, take it from the taxpayers. That is the very definition of fascism, by the way. That's what fascism is, but people don't see it.
I agree with you. Well, we're doing everything we can to let our audience know that we need to be aware of this. I agree with you. We have the same problem here in the United States of America. The corruption of government by corporations. We have just far too much money controlling our government now. Pharmaceutical industry being the #1 lobby here in America. I'm sure it's true around the world, but all the other large industries, big industrial, agriculture, industrial chemicals, oil and gas, the war machine, all of these things. These are supposed to be democracies for and by the people. You're one of the few people in the world today actually standing up for the people. Christine, thank you for bringing us up to date on what's taking place in Europe. Thanks for standing your ground and making making an attempt to have what it should be a very important conversation. I hope you won't give up, and I just want you to know how much we really appreciate you. You're truly brave. I think you will go down in history. You may be a lone voice now, but I think when we look back in the history books of time, they're going to remember you. We're all going to remember you for standing up for freedom and justice and the people. So keep up the good work, okay?
Well, thank you so much, and I will keep up that work because I wouldn't know any other way to do my work.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it. We'll have you on again soon. Take care.